Lucasfilm Star Wars put out 7 main projects, and 5 to 6 of them are really good depending on if you really like Attack of the Clones. That's at best an 85.7% accuracy rating. Disney Star Wars put out 14 projects in the last 10 years, and I would only consider about 9 of them to be at least good. So what's the problem here? Is it time? Has making more content in less time made them sloppy? Maybe, but I really don't want to have to wait 10 years in between Star Wars projects, and I don't think George Lucas wanted that either. That's exactly why he sold to Disney. I'd like them to keep the momentum going, especially as they have quite a bit of it right now. But I'd also like them to kind of slow down. They put out way too many projects in too little time, and I think they started to do a disservice to the brand by making it essentially the thing that acts as filler for your Disney Plus subscription. I believe a lot of these shows should have been movies. Give me a Mandalorian movie. Ahsoka should have been a movie. Andor can stay TV, but I won't have made a movie either. You get the point. Why movies though? Well, there's more chances of bad quality getting through the cracks if you have a long train of work like production of a TV show as opposed to a movie. I mean, think about it. A TV show is 8 hours of product as opposed to a movie which is 2 to 3 hours of product usually. And that's with TV shows usually only having a year of production time before they need to start airing, as opposed to movies where you can take 2 years, 3 years, as many years as possible to make sure that it is great. And in fact, the strategy of putting less and having better quality works in other industries too. Let's take a look at the tech industry. Apple puts out less phones than all of its competition every single year, and so they generally have the best quality control. And what do you know? Even with less phones a year, Apple still outsells most of its competitors every year, sometimes with phones from a year, maybe 2 years back. Much like the ability to release it decade-old Avatar movie put in the cinema and still have it make $500 million. I'm just saying, it's a brilliant strategy, and I think Disney Star Wars should definitely look into this. But this moves us to the second problem. There is, how do you say, a management issue. The head of Lucasfilm, Madam Kathleen Kennedy. Now, she gets a lot of hate. A lot of people don't want her to be the head of Lucasfilm anymore. A lot of people are wondering why she's still the head of Lucasfilm after essentially managing the last trilogy into the ground. But after looking at Disney Star Wars through this lens, I can see why she's still head of the company. 9 out of 14, that's quite a good score. And that's not even taking into account the budget to box office ratios, which most likely a lot of Star Wars content hasn't been losing money. It's in fact been making money. She definitely hasn't run Star Wars into the ground yet. And now I'm also seeing Disney and perhaps her own aversion to making content about the Jedi, and I'm starting to see it as something more of caution than incompetence, because, well, the rise of Skywalker. Now, I'm not sure how big a Star Wars fan she is or how well her views on Star Wars align with the general public, which may be creating some dissonance, but I would be shocked if she hadn't had to admit to herself and to the entire Disney Star Wars Lucasfilm board that she messed up with the last trilogy. And pivoting to making stuff about characters that are not Jedi just makes sense. It's safer. The Jedi, the entire concept of the core concepts of what makes the Star Wars universe so unique and magical, we haven't really found someone who understands those concepts as well as George Lucas, mostly because he made it up. But you know, perhaps Dave Filoni, which we'll probably talk about that in some video in the future. But yeah, we don't exactly want people to keep going. That's not how the Force works in Star Wars content. I mean, just look at it. Mando is a Western, Andor is espionage. It's an easier format, a tried and tested format than Space Wizards and the Force. So I think that the strategy is looking something like hold off on the Jedi a little while, and when you want to dive into it again, get Dave Filoni to pour his energy into it, because he seems to get the Jedi. And announced that James Mangold, the director of Logan, is going to be directing a Dawn of the Jedi movie, because there's a lot less to get wrong. I'm not forgiving her for this. This isn't Kathleen Kennedy apologetics hour, but understand that perhaps she just doesn't really get the Jedi, and people are unfortunately working on Star Wars are trying to figure out what exactly is the best way to take the story forward. I have some ideas about that. This was a story about father and son family. It's kind of been thrown to the side for the sake of the feminism, and perhaps it should be a story about mothers and daughters, so we can have better female characters, so we can still have that like family. It's a space opera, and I'm rambling now, but I just had to do that. It irks me what they did with the last trilogy. The truth is though that it's easier to get the Jedi wrong and upset a lot of fans. So momentarily pivot to blasters and martial arts and not space magic. Now, Miss Kennedy, does she have a bit of an agenda issue? Probably. You know what? No, definitely. But I've never understood how anyone would want to stick to their agenda so tightly that they would run $1 billion franchise into the ground, especially when no one is necessarily getting hurt. And definitely with how much Mary Sue Gray is and how much worse the female characters in general have gotten, there is clearly a problem. But as Star Wars fans, perhaps we also need to understand that there are some deeper problems that even without her politics, we would still be in. And if you look closely, it's not just Disney Star Wars. Their sister company Marvel is also going through a bit of a hiccup right now. Yes, some of the TV shows are good. Some of those are near character assassination though. And on Marvel's side, I basically didn't watch any of the TV shows that I heard had CGI issues. This is $1 billion franchise, and till today I have no regrets. These two companies, they have to get their quality under control. The CGI issues, the writing issues, the misunderstanding of their plot and lore, and then probably we would barely be able to tell that the politics was hurting their movies. The politics, which I still don't understand, you're writing female characters, but they're worse female characters than the ones we had in the past. So are you really empowering female characters? I'm not exactly sure. What are we doing here? I'll see you guys next week. Buy me a coffee in the link in the description if you like this video. See you next week.